Welcome to the Car Flip Show. My name's Justin. I was a part-time flipper turned full-time used car dealer. This show is all about teaching you how to buy and sell cars for profit. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get into the episode. This is episode 17 of the Car Flip Show. Thanks so much for being along for the ride today. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at 6 questions I get asked on a consistent basis about the cars that I'm selling, and I'm also going to go over my responses to those. So these questions are going to be questions that actually almost always come via an app like Let Go or the Facebook Marketplace, which would come to me via the Facebook Messenger app. OfferUp is another common one. Some of these would come via email. Email is very rare. Honestly, text messaging is actually very rare now because most of my leads are coming from Facebook Marketplace. I get a lot of interaction with an app like Let Go. OfferUp is pretty steady, but most of my sales recently have come from the Facebook Marketplace app. So most of these are coming to me via Facebook. So these are the questions. I'll list them 1 through 6. These are not in any particular order. They're not listed by importance, but we're just going to go through these one at a time. Before we get into that, just want to throw it out there. Check out thecarflip.com. We have the My Toolbox at the top. There's a bar at the top. You can check that out. That's going to be our resource for today. This will be the last week that I'm going to mention that. I think I've mentioned it in the last 2 episodes, but I think it's a pretty cool place where you can go check out the things that I'm currently using. We're actually about to shoot a video in the next couple days about windshield repair. Can you do it yourself? Can you not? And if that product is a product that I think is a good fit for that toolbox, it's actually a Permatex product. I think it was like $10 or something on Amazon. So if a product works, so if this chip on, I think it's an Audi A4 is repaired using this Permatex windshield repair kit, it's something that'll go in my toolbox. So you can go in there. Anything you see in there is stuff that I use. So check that out, thecarflip.com. There'll be a box up at the top and the bar that says My Toolbox. If you're on a smartphone, you'll hit the little thing in the top right corner. It's a scroll box. You go to the bottom. It'll be right there. Check that out. Let me know what you think. If there's anything you would like to see added, for example, if you want my opinion on the best, fill in the blank, maybe car brush, or that's something I should do. I have a pretty cool car brush that I have a paint brush handle that extends kind of like a lightsaber. It's pretty cool. Maybe I should put that up there. Maybe you'll see that in the future. But check that out, My Toolbox, over at thecarflip.com. Now, let's get into the actual meat of the episode. We're going to get into the 6 questions that I get asked on a consistent basis. The first that I'm actually going to read, I have a little list below my camera that I'm reading off of right now. So this is just a list. I was sitting actually by my computer today, just jotting these down. This is actually on the back of an Advanced Auto Parts receipt, so very fancy today. But the question that I wrote at the top is one that I probably get the most, and it actually is phrased exactly like I'm going to read it off, and it's, what is the least? And it's usually just like that. What is the least? Usually not even a question mark. They're obviously asking, what's the least I can take for the car? It's phrased that way because usually there's some sort of a language barrier there. They're normally, maybe English is not their first language, so they ask it that way. A lot of times I'll actually get asked a similar question. It'll be in Spanish or it'll be in another language. The Google Translate app is very handy if someone asks a question and they don't speak English and you don't know their language. Just copy it on your phone, open Google Translate, paste it in there. It'll translate immediately. Very simple. Actually, Facebook has been pretty cool. They have a new feature. I've seen it on some of the conversations that I've had with folks on cars. They have a translate button, and then you can click, I think, translate future messages. So anytime they comment back or message back, it automatically translates that. That's really cool. It's like one step closer to one day when we have that thing in our ear. When someone's talking, we can hear their language and our language. It's coming, I think. Maybe one day. We'll see. But the question is, what is the least? They want to know the least I can take for the car. Just as a starting point, as like a #1 rule, it's ideal for the person looking at your car to make the first offer. Used to, I would respond with a number, and I try not to do that anymore. What I generally respond back is, actually this is the exact, it's like on my phone when I type in maybe, this phrase comes up. I just click maybe and I click the phrases afterwards because I type it so much my phone knows what I'm going to say. So when they say what is the least, or when they say what's the least you can take for it, are you negotiable? Usually the response to the are you negotiable is a response like this. Maybe a little, come take a look at it and we can talk about that. So I haven't given a number. I've not said, no, I'm not negotiable. I've said maybe a little. So hopefully that sets the stage for, I'm not talking thousands, I'm talking hundreds. Actually, I had someone last night on Let Go message me on a 2005 Chrysler 300 I have listed right now for $4,450. I think it was what is the least. And I don't know. Sometimes you get so many messages, you just make up stuff. So I said, what is the most? And they said, the next question was, you don't know what you could sell it for? And I said, my price is on the listing, period. What's your offer? ? And just messaged that back. She sent 4,000 ? I wish I could show this on the screen. You could see, I probably could have, but I'm not going to. If you could see, it's just message after message after message. She says 4,000 ? I said, if you're buying soon, that's normally my response. If someone makes an offer and you say yes right away, it's just something inside of us that we think, oh man, they probably would have taken less. So normally I respond and I say, if you're buying soon, I could do that. So at least put something in their mind of, okay, he'll take that, but he needs me to do it soon. A lot of times you never hear from the people again. She said that she was going to be in contact with me later this week. Whether I hear from her or I don't, who knows? But at least we have a number that's set. And I didn't say 4,000 because if I had said, I'll take 4,000, she would have said, what about 37? Because someone always wants to go lower than the number that you give them. But hopefully this one holds at 4. She may come and, we'll see. But I like for the customer to give me the number. It's not always possible. Sometimes it's going to be awkward to keep asking for them to give you a number. So you're going to have to give them a number. Normally when that's the case, like this $4,450 price that I have on this one, if they say, what's the best you could do? And if we finally get down to it, I might just say 4,200. And that way they have to counter from 42 to 4 or from 42 to 37. At least makes them have to make an offer beyond that. If you say 42 and you never hear from them again, they were probably wanting to buy it for 3,000. You couldn't do that anyway. So that's my response. I want them to make the offer. If I do come down on my price, I want to start in small increments. I don't want to drop $1,000. I don't want to really give them my best price right up front, because if you give someone your best price, even if it's an amazing deal, because you've given them that price, they're going to want to negotiate off that on the back end. And it's a great strategy. It's actually my strategy. When I negotiate with someone, I get them to the lowest point I can up front. And then when I get there at the vehicle, I find other things potentially wrong with the vehicle, or I understand the situation that there, maybe is an extreme need for cash at that moment. So then I negotiate off of the already negotiated price. If we're going to be doing that, if we're going to be sending offers and then negotiating on those offers, we ideally don't want that to happen to us when we're selling the vehicle. So that's actually, there's a question later when people, I think my number 5 is lowball offers. What do we do with those? We'll get to that in a minute. But let's not get offended when people offer low numbers, because if we're flipping cars, we're probably doing the same thing. Let's not get on our high horse and think we're better than everyone else. So don't drop too fast, because that's going to set people's expectation that you can maybe go lower than you really can. So that's the first one. How do you handle the what is the least question? And you'll get that question if you ever have a car for sale in the future. You probably already have. The second one that I jotted down on my advanced auto parts receipt was, and it's usually phrased just like this, it's usually not a full sentence, it's anything wrong with it? ? That's a difficult question to answer, especially if you're trying to be honest, because if they say, is there anything wrong with it? If I'm selling a 2007 fill in the blank vehicle, I'm sure there's something wrong with it. Like, I'm sure there's something that's worn. I'm sure there's a ball joint or a shock that's not exactly what it should be. Like, there might be a tire pressure monitor that's bad. If I send someone a list and say, actually, is wrong with it, you're going to scare somebody away. But you don't want to be dishonest. So the way that I respond to this, actually my exact phrasing is normally nothing that I'm aware of, because if there are problems and I'm not aware of them, I've at least been honest and I've been upfront. And I've said there's nothing that I'm aware of that's wrong with it. Now, when someone gets there, like for example, today I had a guy come and look at a Mercury Mountaineer. He asked if there was anything wrong with it. I said nothing that I'm aware of. When he got here to look at it, there were a couple small things that when he got here, I said, oh, by the way, this, actually it's really weird. If you want the windows to go down on this car, you have to turn the lights on. I have no idea why. I don't want to spend the time to investigate that. So I'm just telling the people when they come to look at it. But it's a lot easier to tell someone that in person when you can look at them face to face. You can judge their facial expressions, and it's a lot easier to do in person. So I just showed them, click, windows, everything work. The sunroof actually works the same way. You turn those off, it's not going to work. So something like that, I would explain in person as opposed to over the phone or via text message. You'd have a big, massive book you're writing to someone. If you had to disclose every single little thing, like the left front tire is a little more worn than it should be, you can explain those things in person. Let's get them there in front of you first, and then you can go over the little minute details. The third thing is when people ask questions. This is not a specific question, but when someone asks a question that was already answered in the listing. Now, this is probably the most frustrating of all the questions. When someone says, how many miles are on it? And it's like the first line says there's 137,000 miles. Or when someone says, which engine's in it? And you already put in there that it was the 6-cylinder. You're going to get these questions over and over and over again. A lot of times when you list a pickup truck, if it's a 2-wheel drive, it's an amazing price. And everyone asks, is it 4-wheel drive? And your first sentence might be, 2005 Chevrolet Silverado, 2-wheel drive. They didn't take the time to read it. How should you respond? And this is a touchy subject, especially if you're a car dealer, because car dealers get a million questions a day. People call, people text, people message. Any form of communication, we're involved in that. I own and operate a used car dealership, so I get both sides of this. But when someone asks a question, the way that I respond is in a kind way. If someone asks how many miles are on it, even if the first thing in my listing said it has 137,000 miles, I'm going to respond and I'm going to say 137,000 miles. If they ask things that are clearly stated, I'm always going to answer those questions, because if you can imagine, if they're asking me those questions, they're probably asking everyone else whose cars that they're looking at. So if they looked at the guy's car up the road and then they look at my car and they ask him how many miles are on his, and he says, go look at the ad, you jerk. And they're like, okay, this guy's probably not someone that I want to buy his car because he's a really rude person. I want to be the guy, not just because I want to sell a car, but I want my reputation to be one of a kind person. So I'm going to act like a kind person. I'm going to answer someone's question, even if maybe they're being lazy and that's why they didn't see that to begin with. But I'm always going to answer that question in the off chance that maybe I come across better than someone else and maybe they come buy my car. So that's how I do it. I'm not saying that's the best way. I'm not saying that's how you should do it, but that's how I answer those questions. And you're going to get those questions, which can be frustrating, but hopefully it leads to a potential sale. Number 4 is, and this is another frustrating one, can I take it to my mechanic? Now, there's 2 schools of thought on this. There is, yes, of course, take it to your mechanic. Let them see everything they can see. That way you trust me, and then I can trust your mechanic that gave you an honest report. And then there is the, it's going to be a waste of your time. Why do it? Something could get damaged while it's there at the shop. I honestly fall more on the latter, and only because I've had that happen. I had a Jeep Wrangler once. I let a customer take to a mechanic. He was gone for about 2 hours. When he came back, I didn't take the vehicle out and drive it after he got back. But when I did, there was a massive clanking problem. The mechanic had lifted it from one of the control arms when he shouldn't have. He broke one of the control arm mounts. It was just this big, massive problem, all because someone didn't know how to lift a vehicle properly. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't let him go to the mechanic. He didn't buy the vehicle anyway. It was a big, massive 2-hour waste of my time, plus the gas that I paid for him to drive it over there. So for me, I'm not a huge fan of people taking vehicles to mechanics, not just because they could potentially cause issues. It's definitely not because I don't want them to find issues with the car, but normally you have a mechanic whose job is to find a problem. Most mechanics are paid on commission, which is fine, but their job is to find problems so that they can fix them. If they have a customer that's bringing them a vehicle to look at, like a pre-purchase inspection type thing, they're being paid, I don't know, maybe $50, $80, $90 to look this vehicle over to find any potential problems. If someone's paying them to do that, their job is to find any and all problems. They want to prove that they're the smartest mechanic in the entire world, and normally they do. They write up this big, massive thing. Needs a CV joint, needs a this, needs a that. They'll just go through the whole thing, and they give that to the customer, freaks them out. They come back, and they're running for their lives, even though it's completely normal for a 2007 vehicle, maybe to potentially, there's a split in the CV joint. Maybe one of the boots for the ball joints is, not what it should be, but there's no problem with it. Those kind of things scare people. Normally, when someone's taking a car to a mechanic, it's going to be a waste of your time. If you're an individual, letting someone drive your car off, when you're not there is something that probably should make you nervous. You probably should go with them. Owning a dealership and running a dealership, I don't have time to go sit with someone for an hour, 2 hours at a garage somewhere while the vehicle is looked over. So normally I shy away from that. Exceptions to that would be if I have a newer, like I had a 2015 Ford Fusion recently. I knew there was nothing wrong with the car. There hadn't been enough time for anything really to deteriorate to a point that there would be a problem. A guy was very serious. He had already been approved by his bank. He asked if he could take it. I said, sure, why not? You know, I didn't have anything to lose. He drove it over there. They looked it over. They said everything's great. And that was that. He bought the car. Some benefits to letting a mechanic look over a car is if their mechanic looks over the vehicle, they say there's nothing wrong with it and they buy it from you, and then they have a problem later and they come back to you. It's nice to be able to say, well, you know, your mechanic looked it over and he said everything was fine. And then that kind of puts it on them as opposed to you. So there's two different schools of thought there. Generally, my answer is no. But I usually say no, but you can bring your mechanic with you. And actually, I probably don't even say the no. When they ask if they can take it to a mechanic, I just say, you could bring your mechanic to look at it with you. And then that lets them know that no is the answer. But there is the opportunity for them to bring a mechanic with them, which normally doesn't happen because most mechanics don't have the time to leave their shop and come to whether it's your house, whether it's a Walmart up the road where you're meeting them, or whether it's a dealership. They generally don't have the time, which is the same for me. I don't have the time to go with them. So that's how I usually handle that question when someone asks if they can take a vehicle to a mechanic. The fifth, which is a touchy issue, which I mentioned earlier, is the lowball offer. How do you respond to the lowball offer if you're just getting started, or potentially maybe you're selling your personal vehicle, you know what it's worth, you've booked it out, you've looked at comps, you know it's worth $8,700, you list it for $87,000 and someone offers $4,000. What do? A lot of folks send a few words that generally contain 4 letters to that person, and they just blow up at them. Like, what do you think? Are you crazy? You know, this vehicle's worth what I'm asking for it. Why would you offer me that? And then you never hear back from the person because they made 10 other offers to people in the time that it took you to write that angry, you know, tirade, you know, via text. People are looking for good deals. That's fine. I'm not going to fault anyone. Does it get frustrating? Yeah, of course it does. When I list vehicles for great prices and people lowball, it doesn't feel good, but I do the same thing. So I'm not going to fault someone for doing what I do. If you got a deal on your vehicle, don't fault someone for trying to hustle a little bit on the side and buy a vehicle. Just kindly say no thanks. And you can respond however you want. For me, it's no thanks. Now, it gets different. Sometimes you'll say no thanks, and then it'll follow up, man, that's a lot of miles on that car. Man, it needs this. Man, it needs that. And like, okay, I said no. Some people like to negotiate based on negatives. I would prefer to be positive, so that's not my style, but no thanks is the way that I go about that. It's not worth my time to spend time sending some long message and telling them why it's worth what I think it's worth. Just say no thanks. The last question on our list is, can I make payments? Now, if you're a dealer, that might be a question that you don't mind getting. As a private seller or as a flipper, normally it's not something that you can do. Obviously, you're not in the business of taking payments. You're not even a dealership. So how do you respond to that? And I'll let you know how I respond to that as a dealer. Usually it's yes with approved credit. And for me, there's an app that I use to send someone an application. They can fill it out on their phone. And it comes back to me. That's as opposed to taking the time to write someone's information on a piece of paper, fax it over, and then call them back. If they're going to put in the work to do the application, I'm going to put it on them. I send them the link. They fill it out. It comes straight to me. As a flipper, as a private seller, the first response you should say is no, but do you bank with a credit union? And the reason you would say credit union is because credit unions are a lot easier to deal with than, say, Wells Fargo or Bank of America. So well-established banks, usually they have pretty stringent rules, like the vehicle has to be 7 years or newer. It has to have less than 70,000 miles or something like that. It'll be different from bank to bank. But credit unions tend to be a lot more lenient. For example, I sold a 2003 Chevrolet Avalanche recently that, you know, obviously is well over, well, that's 15 years old. A bank, you know, Wells Fargo would never touch that Chevrolet Avalanche. I've sold vehicles with 150,000 miles. I've sold vehicles with, I think, 200,000 miles, Jeep Wranglers, that have been financed with a bank, but with a credit union that obviously wasn't a bank, but, you know, we're going to call it a bank in parentheses. So people can get finance for vehicles, but a lot of times people don't realize that it's as easy to do as it actually is. So if someone's interested in financing a vehicle, you could ask, do you bank with a credit union? And that would at least put in the back of our mind, hey, I don't have to go to a dealership. I don't have to go to a buyer payer. You know, maybe that credit union that I bank with every, you know, my check goes to every week, maybe they can do something for me. So you at least put that plug in their mind. Nothing may come of it, but at least you've put that in the back of their mind that they might think, hey, let me go check with my bank. If the bank says, okay, we're going to approve you on pretty much any vehicle up to $8,000, you're asking 57, you're the one that mentioned that to begin with, your vehicle's top of mind, maybe they go back to you, maybe they don't, but it didn't take any more time for you to say no than it did to say no, but do you bank with a credit union? So it's worth your time to at least put that plug in. And a lot of times I do that even as a dealership because I don't make money depending on which bank that I send it to. So a lot of times I'll suggest that someone check with a credit union just because it's very easy. They'll finance the tax, tag, everything. It's just nice and simple. So that's the way that I generally respond to that question. So those are 6 questions that I get asked a lot, and those are the answers that I give on each of those questions. If you have a question about any of these questions, feel free to send me an email at justin@thecarflip.com. I love to help you out in regards to anything to do with flipping. If you have not subscribed to this podcast, come on, this is episode 17. You should have been subscribed by now, but you can do that very simply on your podcasting app. Just hit subscribe. If you have the time, leave a rating and review. That would be amazing. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode.